Welcome class to your lecture video for Chapter 7, Managing a Web Server and Files. First note that Chapter 7 is a 1-week chapter, so just make note that 1 week, not 2 weeks. Our Chapter 7 objectives: perform website maintenance, publish a website and transfer files, check files out and in, import and export a site definition, evaluate web content for legal use, present a website to a client. Performing website maintenance. So it's important for us as designers, developers, to maintain a clean operating website. So we're going to learn about how we can use Dreamweaver and its tools to make sure that our website is that. You can use the Assets panel to check, say, a list of images or the colors or maybe even URLs. If you see images or maybe a hyperlink that is not being used, go ahead and evaluate if you need to move that image outside of the website or maybe you need to update that hyperlink. Before and after you publish your website, you can go ahead and use the link checker panel to make sure that all your internal links are working correctly. If you do have a broken link, then you should go ahead and repair that link. So here is our link checker panel, and we're going to see that beyond the broken links option, we also have orphan files that we'll be looking at as well. If the link checker panel does display an orphaned file, you should evaluate again whether to delete them or to link them with an existing page. So an orphan file is simply a file that is not linked to. Now that could be an image, it could be an HTML page that maybe you designed at one time, decided maybe in the planning process that it was going to be there, and then later on never linked to it through your menu. That would make it an orphan file. Same thing with an image. Maybe it's an image that you decided that you were going to use in a page, or maybe you were going to use it for your banner, but then you never did, and so it will show up as an orphan file. So here's some examples of an orphan file within Striped Umbrella. So we have two that are in the assets folder, and then we have a CSS file. And we'll see that maybe two of these files will show up when we run ours. You can use the reports command through the site menu to generate 5 different HTML reports that will help maintain your website. So we will see that when we run, we have the option of coming through a current document. We can run through the entire current local site. We can select files in the site, or we can even navigate to a particular folder to run these reports. So when we get to our example, I'm going to show you that we're going to run the missing alt text and the untitled documents. Design notes. These are separate files in a website that contain additional information about a page file or a graphic file. So design note, you may have noticed maybe an underscore notes folder if you ever looked at your website within a file explorer, for example. Just know that Dreamweaver sometimes creates notes that we aren't even aware that it's created. But we'll create our own as well. Why do we create design notes? Well, maybe we're working in a team environment and it allows us to communicate between one web developer or designer to the other. It's also a good place to store information about source files for graphics, or a good place to just put a note to ourselves that we need to come back and look at this. And so you might want to start incorporating that in your coffee shop website. Just a note to self, say, oh, I need to add a form to this page, or maybe I need to still add another image to this page, or maybe I need to update the date information, or add a text navigation bar in the footer area, or add my name, or whatever it may be. So a note to yourself, and we'll see how we can use that tool. It's important to ensure that the various language versions of our web pages are compatible. It's important to ensure that they work in all versions of browsers. Okay, so from Chrome to Firefox to Internet Explorer to Safari. So we use validation to ensure that our code does just that it works from one browser to the next. The results tab group will display if we have any validation errors. The line number will show up, okay, and then an explanation of what the error is. You should test your website using many different types and versions of browsers, platforms, and screen resolutions. And I encourage you to make sure that you're still doing this. I find often that students do not take the time to see, hey, I made something change to the media query for global, but I never really went and tested to see, does it work on a smartphone? If I make a change to desktop, yeah, I see it right there because that's what I'm working on as a desktop. So make sure that you take the time to make sure that it works in the versions of browsers, different platforms. This means a Mac system maybe versus a Windows system. And those are two most popular ones. You should test every link to make sure it connects to a valid active website. You know, when I click on a link and it's broken, I might click on it maybe 1 or 2 more times, but after that I'm out of there and I'm going to a different website, because typically I find my websites through a search engine and there's more results for me to go back to. You should present the web pages at strategic times in the development process to a team member and to your clients for feedback and evaluation. So if you were designing this coffee shop for an actual client, you would want to make sure that there's intervals of times that you're actually presenting that website to them. You don't want to wait all the way to the end and then you get this, report of feedback of all the things that they didn't even want, that you spent a lot of time on. So you want to make sure that you use that in a development process, otherwise scope creep really comes in. You should analyze all the feedback on the website objectively. It's important that you don't take it personally. It's objectively, incorporating both the positive and the negative comments to help you make improvements to the site and to meet the client's expectations and goals. So just like when I give you feedback, it's important that you go back and you go ahead and incorporate that and make that change, and don't look at it as that I'm trying to attack you. It's just some positive feedback to make your code that much more functional or that much better in design. So we're going to look at pages 6 through 13. This is the largest section, and so we're going to be working from our site menu. So we have the Stripe Umbrella website open, and then we are going to go to the site menu and then into advanced. So we're going to recreate the site cache. So if you've ever had problems uploading your website, where you upload and then you go and look and you refreshed a couple times and you still don't see your changes, this is an option that is always there for you. Recreate site cache. So we're ditching the old memory, old temporary files that Dreamweaver has, and we're creating the new temporary files based on the changes that we just made. So then we go to site, and then we're going to go to site options. So this is step 4 on page 6. So it says site and then it says check link site wide. Well, here's an extra step. We have to go to site options and then check link site wide. Okay, so there's no broken links, which is good. Okay, so this is throughout the entire site here. And then we want to go to orphan files. So orphan files here has 2 files for me. Now you probably won't see this styles_default.css because this was created in chapter 6 when we were doing the fluid grid layout. So you might see the cspa logo.ping. If you do, again, this is where we go, do we need to keep this file or not? Okay, if we decided that nope, we don't need to keep the file, then we can come over here, find cspa logo.ping and delete it, remove it, or maybe copy it to a different location so that we would have it if we need it later on. Now further, we have also external links. So these are all the external links that are used. Whenever you see the edgefonts.net, just know that this is what we use, or what was created when we used the CSS Designers panel to bring in an Adobe Edge web font. Okay, and then we have some of our emails, we have some of our external links. So if I needed to update this one, for example, I could just double click in here and I can go ahead and update it. So if you're managing your external links, this is a great way to go about doing it too. It gives you the file that it's linked in as well. Okay, so the orphan files we already went over. I'm going to go ahead and shut out the link checker panel, and then I'm going to come over to reports this time. So reports, it's very important that when you run this, that you make sure that you go to entire current local site. If I do current document, it's going to be only the document that is currently selected over here in the Files panel or that's currently open here. So entire current local site. And the two reports that you want to run are missing alt text and untitled documents. So I'll go ahead and run. And the good news is, hey, I've done a good job of completing the exercises. I have nothing that has an issue. But let's just say I'm going to open up the About Us page. And I'm going to bring my Properties panel. And let's just say, for example, I'll go Control. I remove that. Or maybe it was a brand new file and it said Untitled Document, because that's how Dreamweaver brings them in. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this file. I'm going to rerun my report. And now it says About Us, warning, document uses default title of untitled document. Okay, so that's a flag to me that I need to go to this file. I double click this. It took me right to the title tag, which shows up in the Properties panel down here, and I add back in my title, and I go ahead and run my report again, and I'm good. Okay, now furthermore, like this example right here, if I had no alternate text, this is very common. Site reports, go ahead and run my two reports. It's not showing up. Why is that? Did I not save it? I did. That's interesting. It should show up. So let me go ahead and recreate my site cache. And then let's go ahead and run that report again. Entire current local site. Still not showing up. That's kind of concerning to me. So make sure that all your pages have the alternate, or when you add an image in, make sure you add in the alternate text. I'm going to have to look into that and see what the issue may be there. Okay, because typically that should flag it. So typically, right? Validate for HTML5 standards. So the sad part about this is that you can only do one file at a time. It makes logical sense that that's the way it is because you're validating one page at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Café page. And then File, Validate, and then Current Document W3C. And it just says Dreamweaver will now send your document to the W3 service for validation. We go ahead and click on OK. So then we have some information sent back to us. Okay, so anything that really is beyond the scope of this class, like this, the type attribute is unnecessary for JavaScript resources. This, I believe, and it says line 29. So this is referring to the Edge web fonts. So this type of information you're going to ignore. Considering adding a language attribute to the HTML start tag to declare the language of this document. So Dreamweaver at this time is not doing that. So simply what you could do, I believe, I'm not sure if you can do it up here, right here, HTML, you would type in language equal EN, for example. Okay, so that would bring in the English language for this document. So let me go ahead and rerun this. Okay, and now that language went away. So if you want to take the time to add that in, great. Okay, that would be awesome. Café, it says no P element in scope, but a P end tag seen. So this is because our book told us to insert our navigation before with a P tag and a P tag after. So this, I would just go ahead and remove those two, opening P tag to closing P tag. They're not necessary. They do nothing for the design. And then go ahead and run it again. And now that P tag is gone. So go ahead and take the time and do that for every web page in your document. Now, as far as the CSS validator, I think this is a good tool as well. I've seen some students where maybe we copied and pasted code, specifically the ULLIA code we copied, and maybe we forgot a brace, maybe we accidentally cut a brace, those kind of things. So if you go to Jigsaw, or even if you type in your Google search bar CSS validator, jigsaw.w3.org /CSS-validator. So here I can go by a file upload, and I'm going to navigate to my files, and I'm going to just do SU styles. Okay, and if I come back and if I had an error, it would go ahead and tell me that I had an error. So can Amy create an error? Let's give it a try. So some of them I've seen, especially if your layout ever changes so that maybe now this layout is wider, typically it's because a media query closing brace is missing. So let's see if the validator will flag this. So I'm under the tablet media query, and I am going to remove that media query closing. So let's come up here and see, yep, now all of a sudden my layout is wider. And now I'm going to go ahead back here and I'm going to run my validator one more time. So it's already listed there. All I have to do is click check. Oop, not sure why that happened. So let's go ahead and browse again. Okay, so now I have an error. It says parse error and it gives me a line 313. Well, if I go down through this, it's going to take me a while to find it. Okay, so it's kind of flagging it right there for me. Because you know what I did, it's easier for you to fix. But your big flag is if your layout ever becomes wider than the page layout that it's supposed to be, is typically because a brace is missing for the media query. So that's how you can use the validator for CSS as well. Now let's get into design notes. So it says click site on the menu bar, manage sites. So this is what we did back in day one when we created our sites. So we're going to go ahead and edit, so you can double click or click your pencil. And then we're going to go to advanced settings, and then we are going to go to design notes. You want to make sure you have a check mark here. If I was sharing my notes, I would enable upload design notes for sharing. Okay, so for others that are working on the site. Then we need to jump to file view columns, and we need to make sure that notes is, and this is the way it should come in for you, is hide. So we need to make sure that is show. So we double click it, click on show, and then click save. So now in my files panel I will see a note if I have an actual design note. Okay, so a couple ways of creating design notes. So we are going to do the activities page. So open the activities page, click file on the menu, and then go to design notes. So you have all info or you have basic info. Here I can put in the note, and they want us to put a date, so we click on the little date icon. And then we add in add new parasailing video. And then the status needs attention. And then down here in the bottom, this right here, we want to check that so that when we open this file again, it's going to give us this design note. So go ahead and click OK. I'm going to click on refresh in my files panel. Now I see my little note icon. That's from that files view column. I'm going to close activities, and then I'm going to open it up again, and there's my design note. Okay, note to self. Use these often. Now if I need to edit a design note, let's just say I had my file open already, I can right click, come down to design notes, do it that way. Okay, so we're going to add, and then it says, I'm going to put this down on one line, ask Sue Guerin to send the file. And click OK. Okay, now, so now let's look at our Files panel, or not a Files panel, File Explorer for Striped Umbrella. So Striped Umbrella, and now I have this underscore notes file. So it's under for activities. If I were to open this up, let's see here, open, there should be an open with. I was hoping that it would go right to Dreamweaver. Okay, let's go ahead and open with brackets. Just to show you what the file looks like. So it's an XML file, and it just gives us information about it. So here's the notes, here's the status, and then show on open value true. So if I wanted to get rid of notes, I could simply just delete this folder, and then that note would go away. Hey, jumping into lesson 2, publishing a website and transferring files. So I am not going to take the time to go through some of the exercises in this section because simply we've been doing this all along, but I am going to review the terms. So a web server is a computer with software that enables it to host websites, and it has an IP address so that we can connect to it and we can transfer files back and forth. Oh, let's see here. Sometimes I hit that. Before you can publish a site to a web server, you must first define the remote site by specifying the servers. And we did that back in week 1. Okay, back in chapter 1, we went and defined the servers. So with that said, it was through site and then manage sites. So if I were to look at Striped Umbrella, and I'm not sure if I even have server information. Yep, I do. So here's my server information. So that is what that slide is talking about. So here is the dialog box that we just looked at. The file transfer protocol, that's what we set up here, FTP. We specified the server address and the folder name. So our server address, our login information, and then our root directory was the folder name. You could also use secure FTP, which lets you encrypt file transfers to protect your files, your usernames, and passwords. Once you set up a remote server in the Files panel by choosing Remote View, you can go ahead and see your server. So again, we've been doing that all along. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this out, and I'm going to expand my Files panel. So here is the server view. You've been watching that as you go ahead and upload information. This is just from week 1, so it's not much information on the server for me. And then we went and uploaded, right? So we either copied, we dragged and dropped, hit the up arrow, those kind of things. If we needed to transfer dependent files, and I'm sure you've seen that warning where it says, do you wish to upload your dependent files? You could download. Sometimes it happens where maybe a flash drive goes bad, or maybe we lose a file simply. We can take the file over here and we could go ahead and click on download to get the file. We can also use Synchronize. So Synchronize is something that we haven't touched. Synchronize, if I were to look right here at this expanded view of my Files panel, is this one. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and I'm going to click on Synchronize. And then Synchronize says entire Striped Umbrella website or selected files only. Well, we'll go with entire. And then it says get and put newer files. So do I just want to put newer files to remote, or get and put newer files? Typically, it's going to be put newer files to remote. So then it looks through, compares the dates that are over here to the dates that are over here, and then goes ahead and uploads as well. We have such a small scope on our website, so we don't have a lot of files. So Synchronize is not something that I really touch on, say, back in chapter 1. But is this something that you could start using definitely as we go through? So it says 718 through 721. But again, 718, 19, and 20, and actually it should be 717, 18, and 19. We did all of that, and 20, we did that all through back in chapter 1. So if we look, we can look at 721, and we can look at the synchronize button, and they just chose, it says to put newer files, put newer files to remote, entire website, so that we get a preview of it. And these are the files that it's going to upload to the server. So I haven't uploaded since back in chapter 1, so that's why all of those are. So I can go ahead and agree to it. And now we're putting everything on the server. Okay, and so now everything is updated based on what the update date was over here, based on the version that was over here. Checking files out and in. So it's like when you go to the library and you check out a book, okay, and someone else comes in and tries to check out that book. They can't check out the book because it's no longer there. It's the same principle here. So if I'm working on a file and I'm part of a team, I certainly don't want my teammate working on the same file that I'm working on, so I go ahead and check it out. So I check it out, and then when I'm done working on it, I check it back in so that if another team member needs to work on it, they can go ahead and work on it. When this feature is enabled, only one person can work on that file at a time. When a file is checked in, you cannot make edits to it unless you check it out again. Okay, so it's just like if you put the book back to the library, you can't really read from it unless you've checked it back out again. So here is the check in button and the check out button. So let's go ahead and look at those examples, pages 24 and 25. Now the thing with checking out and in is that you must have a server defined. So if you do not have a server defined, you can't check it out and you can't check it in. Okay, so we go through, and I'm going to double click on Striped Umbrella here at the top, and I'm going to go to Advanced Settings, and then I'm going to come to, actually I'm going to go to Servers. I think it is here. I don't do this very often. Yep, Servers. I'm going to double click on the server A2 hosted, and then I'm going to go to Advanced. And then here's the enable file checkout. So I can put in my name here, my email address, jittery today here, and then click on save. Okay, and then yeah, so go ahead and click save. Now if I wanted to check out a file, select the cafe page in the local files, list in the files panel, and you can go ahead and use these buttons up here. So check out. Okay, so now there's a green check mark next to it. Okay, so now that particular file is checked out. Okay, if I needed to check it back in, I go ahead and click on the check in button. Okay, let's see if we go ahead and click on refresh here, if that does anything. Unlock. Sometimes when these are locked because you've checked out a particular file, you have to go ahead and right click on them and unlock them. So it's something you can practice, play around with if you want. But again, we're not part of a team here, so we really don't use the checking out and the checking in. So let's see here if there's anything more that I've missed. Nope. Okay, cloaking files. So if I want to make sure that I don't upload a particular file type, cloaking files comes into play. So excluding a particular file type. or an entire folder. So here's an example. If I want to make sure that I never upload this entire folder, I can go to cloaking and then cloak, so that uncloaks everything. So now when I go ahead and upload, none of this will be uploaded. Notice that these here are two because these were part of that cafe page, so they were locked. When I want to uncloak, I just right click and go to cloaking and uncloak or uncloak all. So I'm going to uncloak all of them. Then I'm going to right click and go to cloaking and go to settings. Settings is probably more applicable. So cloak files that end with .psd, for example. I'm going to use .gif just so that I get one that shows up as cloaked. Okay, so now these three here are cloaked, meaning they won't upload. So if I go back into cloaking, into settings, typically what you use here is the file formats that are raw format from, say, a photo editor file. PSD files are really large. Maybe it's a video file that you don't want to upload. And so you would go ahead and cloak those. Okay, so a lot from your right-clicking and getting to your context menu there. Let's see here. We just went through pages 30 and 31, kind of on my own there. And then lesson 5 has to do with importing and exporting a site definition. So again, I should say again, but we do this on campus a lot because our labs are re-imaged every time they are rebooted. And so this is something that you can do on a personal machine. Maybe you're transferring your files from one to another and then you don't have to worry about redefining a site. So it creates a .ste file. So I'll show you what we do here on campus. So on campus I have the students go to site and then to manage sites. And then I have them usually do all of them and we export the current sites. It does a backup of their logins and their passwords, all that server information. And then what I have them do is create a folder, and I have them create a folder called st_files. And so I have them save everything in that folder, and then watch me do this. I'm going to delete all of these. And you're like, yeah, that's kind of crazy, but yep, all my site definitions are gone. Now I import, and now I'm going to go to that STE folder, and there is my 4 sites. I select them all, and I import them back in. It's as if they were never gone. So you can definitely do this. You just come back and you import the site. And so if you were going from one computer to another, you could export your site definitions. I do this a lot when I want to just clean up all the site definitions I have. I will export them and then just bring them in back in one at a time as I see that I need them. So again, you could export them all or export one of them and then go ahead, if you had to go to, say, another machine, and then you would import it. So you don't have to redefine that site definition. Site definition meaning this. So sometimes I think this is unclear. Site definition is when I go to site, manage sites, and this is site definition. So this is the local information. This here is the server information. That's what's stored in that .ste file. So if I look at server information, that's all my username and my password, where am I uploading to, what folder am I uploading to. If I look at my local information, it's where am I storing it locally? Is it on my hard drive? Is it on my thumb drive? Those kind of things. Then the last couple things have no exercises with them, but talks about important content. So intellectual property is a product resulting from human creativity. It can include inventions, movies, songs, designs, clothing, and so on. The purpose of copyright law is to promote progress in society, not expressly to protect the rights of copyright owners. However, the vast majority of work you might want to download and use in a project is protected by either copyright or trademark law. Copyright protects the particular and tangible expression of idea, not the idea itself. Trademark protects an image, word, slogan, symbol, or design used to identify goods or services. So the way I've had copyright kind of explained to me is that it all depends on what the judge says at that particular time is copyright for that particular tangible expression of that idea. So it's not a hard and fast thing. So just make sure that you're not copying anybody else's total idea out there. A copyright owner has a bundle of 6 rights consisting of reproduction, including downloading, creation of derivative works, for example, a mobile version of a book, and distribution to the public. A copyright owner has a bundle of 6 rights, and these continue on. So public performance, public display, public performance of a digital audio transmission of sound recording. By default, only a copyright holder can create a derivative work of his or her original by transforming or adapting it. The law builds in limitations to copyright protection. One limitation is fair use. Fair use allows limited use of copyright protected work. Work that is no longer protected by copyright is called the public domain, and anyone can use it however they wish. So there is a years, and I can't remember how many years it is, based or beyond the author's death, those kind of things. So in general, the photos and other media on federal government websites are in the public domain. You need to obtain a license agreement if you're going to use someone else's image that is not in the public domain or in Creative Commons. So you will negotiate the terms of use. Typically you purchase, and then there'll be a terms of use that you agree to. So here is some legal, with regards to the content of their website. So this is congress.gov. Permissions process, so if you want to use maybe some text, a photo, a trademark, and then how are they giving you permission? So you want to make sure it's as legal as it can be. Use the work determines the level and scope of permissions you need to secure. So if I were asking to use someone else's work, I'm going to supply my full name, my address, and the complete contact information, and how I'm going to want to use their work. So the intended use, a signature line for the copyright holder to sign, and a target date when you would like the copyright holder to respond. A familiar copyright symbol or copyright is no longer required to indicate copyright, nor does it automatically register your work. Okay, so with regards to our information, when you're working on your coffee shop website, you need to make sure that you're using Pixabay, or if you're using images or content from another person's website, that you have gotten permission to do that. And we'll go over the grading rubric in another video. So presenting a website to a client, these are the last slides. So we talked about a little earlier that there are intervals along the way that you should go ahead and present that website. So do all your final design and development decisions reflect your client's goals and requirements? So when we get into my grading rubric, these questions are going to be, worded in a different way. Or does the website not only fulfill your client's goals and requirements, but those of the intended audience as well? Did you follow good web development processes? Did you check your page against your wireframes as you developed them? Did you check each page against current accessibility standards? We don't get a lot into accessibility. Just remember you have your alternate text for your images. Did you run all necessary technical tests such as validating, searching for missing alternate text and missing page titles? Did you verify that all external and internal links work correctly? Did your final delivery date and budget meet the time frame and budget you originally promised the client? So that is called scope creep. And so it's very important that you present intervals along the way so that that doesn't happen to you. So communicating with your client is very important for your project to be successful. You can use software such as Basecamp that allow you to collaborate with companies. To present the final project, consider publishing the site to a server. So just like as we do and I correct your information, it's a way for me to see what is there along the way. You could also invite your client to your office, but typically that's not the way we go about it. It's publish, allow them to look at it, allow them to test, and then they go ahead and give us the feedback. That is chapter 7. So in your assignments page, there are a couple sections that you don't need to do. So for Blooms and Bulbs, you don't need to do the check files out and in. And for TripSmart, 15 through 18, and Coffee Shop, 6 and 7. So let's look at Coffee Shop, page 7-47. So enable file checkout feature and check out one of the pages. You don't need to do that. So before you begin the process of publishing your website to a remote server, make sure that it's ready for public viewing. 1, 2, we've already done 3. So honestly, what you need to do for Coffee Shop is to continue to build based using a website checklist on page 7-47. Okay, so continue to build. Now, if you have any questions on any of the content through chapter 7, please let me know. I will also be publishing a video with regards to our grading rubric as well, so that you are not caught off guard as to what is needed for grading for the final project. So be looking for that link here as well, and then I'll publish it in another place too. Thank you for your time.